Good morning, Faith Family, and welcome to this Tuesday edition of the Daily Connection, a time when we get together in the Word. More importantly, the Word gets into us. Well, this week we're looking at the topic of joining God's work, and today we're focusing on John chapter 12, verse 46, where Jesus says, "I have come as light into the world so that everyone who believes in me would not remain in darkness." So in this text, we're reminded that in the context of this world, the ruler of this world, being Satan, has brought in, through his deception and lies, a condition of darkness. And darkness in Scripture often carries several connotations. One can be the idea of being covered up. When you're in darkness, you can't perceive things well. You can't understand what's going on around you. You can't really see clearly. And so there's this idea of deception in terms of darkness. There's also a moral sense to darkness in the idea of immorality, that which is contrary to the nature and character of God as revealed in His Word and His law. You know, there's all sorts of idea of darkness being oppressive in the sense of if someone's in emotional darkness, they tend to be in an oppressive state. And so I want you to notice in verse 46, first of all, that Jesus says they will not remain, that those believe in Him would not remain in darkness. So that's a reminder that outside of Christ, our condition is to be in darkness, to be in bondage to darkness. That's the reason why Paul, Colossians chapter 1, verse 13, another text you can look at later, said, He has rescued us from the domain of darkness. So, number one, we had to be rescued because we had no capacity, we had no power in of ourselves to get outside of that. And so one element of God's work in terms of light and darkness is that He's in the business of redeeming, rescuing His people out of darkness. And He does that through revelation. Jesus says, I have come as light to the world. Light, we know in terms of darkness, brings, number one, revelation. It brings about an awareness of our surroundings and a capacity to understand and perceive. And of course, Jesus as the light came to bring about a revelation of who God is, helping us to understand who God is. But secondly, also helping us to see in a convicting sense who we are. The sin nature within us, that when compared to who Jesus is and perfect and holy and the human representation of God, that we are then convicted because we are sinful and unrighteous and unholy. And we're in that fallen sense. We're in the domain of darkness. So Jesus says, I have come to reveal who God is. I've also come to reveal who you are in that domain of darkness. And He says so that they would not remain in darkness. Going back to what Paul said, He rescued us. So there's an element of redemption in that as well. And so bringing that into our context, I mean, the topic was joining God in His work. How do we do that? Because obviously we can't rescue anyone in the sense of our ability to give them power over sin, give them escape from the domain of darkness. But we do have that element, that position and that place and that purpose of revelation in the sense of we now as believers have the light. And we are to shine the light into the darkness. And we do that in many ways. One way is through kind acts of kindness to others. The second way is by sharing the gospel. The gospel is specifically given by God to go about shining as a light in the darkness, to bring about a revelation of who God is, what God is doing, and our condition and how we're to respond to all that. That's the beautiful way of that. It's by loving others. We can just make all sorts of application under each of those large headings. But in terms of John 12:46, it's clear that we join God in His work in this and that we carry on the ministry of Jesus. We continue to shine the light through, like I said, whether it be speaking the gospel, sharing the gospel, or through acts of kindness, of gracious, showing love to others. In that sense, we show them a clear, established contrast between what the world is in, darkness, and who God is, light. So if you think about that today, just think about one question that the writer in the student edition asks is, how can we reflect the light? How can we reflect the realities of light? And I gave you those. I hope you'll think on those. More importantly, I hope you'll put those into practice, whether you're headed out the door, getting ready to go to work, getting ready to go to school, maybe you're wrapping up the day and you make commitments for tomorrow. But in all of that, remember, we are the light of the world. We're a city on a hill. We're a lamp on the shelf to provide light to everyone in the room and ultimately to glorify Christ. So one of the ways we do that, and I always encourage you in this, is that as you're going to wherever it is God's sending you today, go with the mindset of living sent.